Good Monday, Autry. I hope everybody's having a great day and everybody had a great weekend. Today is Let's Talk About Books. So in our video today, as I've done in the last few Mondays, I'm going to combine the two things that I normally record every day. And today is Let's Talk About Books, and then my first chapter reads. So on Mondays, I typically do both of those in one video since we're talking about books. So my question to you is, you don't like to read? Let's talk about it. So why should you read? What does reading do for you? I know we've got a lot of avid readers in middle school, but we also have some that are reluctant readers. And unfortunately, my son was one of those when he was here. However, he also read a lot to make me happy. So sometimes you read to make your parents happy, and that's okay. He found his favorite books that he loved for a very long time. He still loves them. He still talks about them. Some of those very favorite books he found while he was in middle school. So like Michael Vey is one of his favorite series, and Jack something was another one. So some of those series that you're going to find in middle school will stay with you for a long time, and that's important too. And then one of the book I'm reading today, was also one of his favorites, but I think he liked it because of the title, so that's okay too. What does reading do for you though? It increases your vocabulary. So when you're reading text that's a little bit higher, I know I don't care what lexile book you read. I just want you to enjoy it. But when your teachers talk to you about your lexile and things like that, they want you to read just above your lexile. And why they want you to do that is because it's more challenging, and the vocabulary, you're going to be picking up new terms and things and new words in your reading, and that's important. It also helps your fluency. The more that you read, the more fluent you become in your reading. What does that mean? That means that the more that you read, the easier it's going to be to read through something even out loud. So it's going to flow easier. You're not going to make as many mistakes because you're reading more. My sister hated to read. My sister to this day, she's older than me, she does not like to read in public. So like if she's in a group and they ask people to read, she will not volunteer because she doesn't like to do it, because she did not read much growing up because she wasn't made to read, or she didn't enjoy it. And so even as an adult, she doesn't like to read now. She does for her job and things at times, but and we had a conversation this weekend about how she just does not like to read out loud. So when you read more out loud and you do it regularly, or when you just read more even in your head and you're not saying it out loud, it will help your fluency so that when you're called on to read out loud or speak out loud, it's going to go smoother for you. Reading also helps improve your writing skills. So I heard this term, or this saying, and I really like it, that when you write, you need to write like a reader and you need to read like a writer. What does that mean? Is when you write, you need to make sure that the person that's going to read your writing is going to enjoy reading it. And then when you read, you need to look at what you're reading like, how can I do that if I was writing it? So make subtle changes in your head. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm total honest Miss Foster moment here, okay? There are some books that I loved right up to the end, and then I hated the ending. And in my head, I rewrote that ending in a way that I liked it. So sometimes you need to look at books when you're reading them, or stories, short stories, and you need to go, how could I change this if I was the writer on this? So you need to read like you're a writer. I love looking at some writing and going, oh, I like how they phrase that. And I'll even sometimes write it down so that I'll remember it. So you always look when you're reading about how they wrote it. Another thing is it improves your thinking and your creativity. So you look at more out of the box thinking when you are reading, because you're experiencing the story through a character and you're seeing how they did it, and it opens up your mind to new opportunities. Another thing is your creativity. When you read, you're living somebody else's life through those pages and you're seeing it from their point of view. But when you become creative, then it works out too. It also will help your memory, and it will also impact your future. Now, Miss Foster, I'm in middle school. I don't need to know about my future yet. Well, when you read, you're going to do better on test scores later on in high school and in college, and it will also help you later in life. So yes, reading now in middle school impacts your future. Okay, so today's book, I'm so excited to share it with you, is Charlie Joe Jackson's Guide to Not Reading. Like I said, I think my son liked this because he always said he was not a reader. And I think that he liked this title. So, but we also have other Charlie Joe Jackson's guides over there. So I'm going to read to you a couple of chapters, and you'll understand why in just a minute. The first chapter is this long. So here we go. My name is Charlie Joe Jackson, and I hate reading. And if you're reading this book, you hate reading too. In fact, you do whatever you can to avoid reading. And the fact that you're holding a book in your hand right now is kind of shocking. I know exactly how you feel. I'm one of you. Just remember, you're not alone. We'll get through this together. Chapter 2. This book is a guide for people like us. It will serve two purposes. One, it will show people how to get out of reading. And two, on those unfortunate occasions when you're not able to get out of reading and are forced to read a book, it will be a nice, easy book to read. In all likelihood, you're reading this book against your will, and I sympathize with you. Therefore, I also make you a solemn promise. The chapters will be short, the pages will be shorter, and whenever possible, I will keep the words shortest, one syllable or less. I'm also going to include some specific tips about reading or not reading throughout this book. Some have to do with getting out of reading altogether, which is the strategy I recommend, and some have to do with making the best of it. If you do have to read a book, it can be surprisingly hard to avoid reading a book at some point in your life, even in middle school, as it turns out. You'll understand more as our story unfolds. One of my book reading friends, Jake Katz, used that term once when he was describing a paper he was writing. He became somewhat less of a friend right at that moment. He was talking about as our story unfolds. Charlie Joe Jackson's tip number 1. If you have to read a book, make sure it has short chapters. This first tip is pretty self-explanatory. Think about it. If your mom or dad tells you to read 3 chapters before bed, wouldn't you rather the chapters be one page each instead of 10 pages each? Wouldn't you rather read 3 pages instead of 30 pages? That's why you're reading 27 less pages, but you can still say, hey, guess what? I read my 3 chapters. Trust me, they'll never know the difference. Okay, so that was just the first 2 chapters of Charlie Joe Jackson's Guide to Not Reading. So we do have this book available in the CLC if you would like to check it out. Go to autryclc.com, and there's a video there on the left-hand side that will tell you exactly how to check out our books. All right, Autry, I hope you had a great day, and pick up a book.